My daughter once told the neighbors I was too old to live alone, then tried to take my house papers while I was praying at church. I didn't scream, I documented. That night, I filed everything with my lawyer and slept peacefully for the first time in years. They thought I'd broken. I was just beginning. When I pulled into the driveway that evening, the air was thick with the smell of cut grass and someone else's perfume drifting out of my house. My porch light burned steady, just the way I'd left it, but the rhythm of the place felt wrong. The chairs were shifted. My welcome mat crooked. 2 extra cars sat bold as brass in my driveway like they'd paid the mortgage. Booker and I built this home from the ground up. Every brick was chosen. Every shutter hung by his hands and mine. I still manage the paperwork, handle the insurance, keep the taxes paid. Folks like to forget women my age know how to handle business. I pulled my little roller bag behind me, hips aching, but I wasn't about to let that slow me down. When you've lived 6 decades, you learn how to push through a sore back and a sore heart. I stepped inside through the side door, expecting the soft smell of lemon cleaner and coffee. Instead, I got fried onions and grease, the kind that clings to walls. My kitchen light glared bright on pans I didn't leave out. My favorite mug, white with Eat VI painted in green, sat in the sink with lipstick stains that weren't mine. That was enough to make my stomach tighten. This wasn't borrowing, this was marking territory. I froze for a second, listening. Footsteps upstairs. A man's weight. Not Carlin's. My daughter's steps are quick, nervous. These were slow and heavy. Carlin, my voice carried steady. "Mama," she answered, tone thin and guilty, like a teenager caught sneaking out. Except she's 38. That one word told me more than any explanation would. I didn't need a confession. I just needed to hear how she said my name. She came down the hall, hair messy, clutching her phone like she'd been texting someone about me. "You're home early," she said, smiling too wide. She didn't hug me. That's when I knew something was sitting in my house that didn't belong here. I walked down the hallway toward my bedroom. Booker's fishing license still hung on the wall beside our wedding photo. That hallway used to feel warm. Now it felt like trespass. I pushed open the door, and there she was. Avis Kincaid, my daughter's mother-in-law, lying in my bed under my quilt, head on my pillow, breathing like she owned the air in that room. My robe was on the chair. My nightstand held her lotion, her glasses, her pills. Even Booker's framed photo had been moved to the dresser like he was a distant cousin instead of my husband. Avis blinked at me slow, not embarrassed, not sorry. Just annoyed I'd interrupted her nap. That look hit deeper than any slap. "Evening," she mumbled. I didn't raise my voice. "That's my bed." She shrugged, rolling to her side. "Harlan said I could rest here." Harlan, my son-in-law, appeared in the doorway. Tall, smug. Holding a beer like this was his living room. "She's been tired. Miss Eudora," he said. "We just needed a place for Mom to rest." He called her Mom, loud, to remind everyone where the power sat. Then, calm as you please, he nodded toward the guest room. "You can stay downstairs for now." "Downstairs is the laundry room," I said. He shrugged again. "If you don't like it, you can leave." The words hit my chest like cold steel. My jaw locked. The hum in my ears grew loud, like wind before a storm. Carlin whispered, "Mama, please don't start." That whisper cut worse than his tone. I took a long breath, steady. "I'm not starting anything." Inside, though, something shifted. Booker once told me, "You never win a fight, you start angry." So I didn't fight. Not yet. I took inventory. Deed, mine. Taxes, mine. Every bill, mine. Baby, I told Carlin softly. You and I will talk later. I rolled my bag back down that hallway, counting every change: moved chair, foreign smell, crooked picture frame. Each detail went into the quiet file in my head. When I stepped outside again, the night had cooled, but my hands were warm. I closed the door behind me from the outside, turned the key slow. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just whispered to the empty air. They're about to learn who owns this house. I sat outside a long while, the porch light painting my hands in gold. My overnight bag leaned against my ankle like a dog that didn't know where to rest. I wasn't leaving, just thinking. There's a rhythm to breathing when you're hurt. In slow, out slower, until the ache settles enough for you to see clear. Through the window, I heard voices floating like smoke, Harlan's, smooth as butter, but sharp underneath, saying, "We're doing the best we can for her." He said it the way a man rehearses a line before a show. They were rewriting me already, turning me into some confused old woman they'd taken in. That's how folks steal your dignity, before they ever touch your money, I told myself. When people start narrating your story for you, you'd better take back the pen. So I did. I stood, dusted my slacks, and decided to walk back inside, not to fight, but to watch. A table will tell you what a hallway can't. The smell hit me first. Grease, salt, and arrogance. My own pots worked hard for strangers. The dining room glowed bright like a cheap stage. My good china spread out like they'd earned the right. The same china Booker and I only used on Christmases when the house felt holy. Avis Kincaid sat at the head of the table, Booker's chair. The one nobody touched after the funeral. That woman leaned back like she'd been born there. Carlin, my daughter, sat beside her like a student at the knee of a new teacher. Harlan at the opposite end, his foot tapping the rhythm of ownership. My seat? Pushed halfway to the wall. No silverware, no glass, just a folded napkin, like a guest at her own memorial. I didn't ask permission. I dragged a chair from the hall and set it right at the table's edge. The scrape of wood on tile cut through their chatter. They froze a heartbeat too long before pretending not to notice. "Evening," I said, smooth. Avis smiled that syrupy church smile. We went ahead and started, baby. Didn't want the food to get cold. I nodded, watching Harlan's smirk stretch thin. "That's thoughtful," I said. "I like to see guests comfortable in my home." They exchanged glances. Carlin poured sweet tea into Avis's glass first, then her husband's. "Never mine." Harlan spoke up, light and loud. "Your little trip go all right?" That word, little, told me everything. I chewed slow, studying him the way women my age study men who think they're smarter than us. "My business went just fine," I said. "Still mine, last I checked." Avis sighed, hand to her chest. "We're all under stress. Eudora, you've been so unsettled." Carlin kept her eyes down. I didn't blink. "Unsettled?" I said. "Seems to me the only thing unsettled here is who's paying the mortgage." Silence fell, thick as syrup. When dinner ended, Carlin's phone buzzed. She stepped into the hall, voice low. I stayed by the sink, rinsing plates that weren't mine. Her whisper carried, "We're trying to help her, but she doesn't make it easy." Then, "We took her in." That one sentence cracked something in me. My daughter had adopted the lie. We took her in. In my own house. That's how a story spreads. First as pity, then as proof. I wiped my hands dry, watching my reflection in the dark window. If they could say it once, they could put it on paper next. I walked back in. Harlan leaned against the counter, trying to look casual. "We're all family here. Eudora." I locked the china cabinet and slid the key into my pocket. Family asks, I said. Tenants assume. Avis tittered like it was a joke, but her eyes darted away first. Don't get upset, baby, she murmured. I'm just resting my nerves. I smiled thin. Then rest them in the guest room, Carlin whispered. Mama, not tonight. I hear you, I told her, and that scared her worse than shouting would have. When the dishes were done, I turned off lights one by one, slow and final. I opened the hallway closet and laid my hand on the fireproof lockbox without taking it out. The weight of those papers, the deed, the insurance, the receipts, was heavier than any grief. Booker used to say, "Keep your name where nobody can pick it up." I closed the door gently. I ended that night in the recliner, purse under my arm, shoes still on. The house hummed with their laughter upstairs. I whispered into the dark, tomorrow, they'll remember whose name pays for every chair at that table. I woke before the sun. My back ached from the recliner, my neck stiff, and my mind sharper than sleep ever made it. The house was quiet, too quiet. Not even the sparrows on the fence made a sound, just the low hum of the refrigerator, steady as a warning bell. Silence after chaos never means peace, it means something's brewing. I stretched, rubbed the edge of my hand across my forehead, and walked toward the kitchen. The coffee pot had been moved. My purse sat where I left it beside the chair, but the clasp was open, my wallet slightly pulled out. Someone had gone through it while I slept under this same roof. When people stop respecting your purse, they've already decided your privacy doesn't matter. I didn't curse. I just zipped it shut and locked eyes with my reflection in the dark window above the sink. Then the scream came, a sound so shrill it sliced the quiet like glass breaking. Avis Kincaid. Upstairs. Harlan's footsteps thundered over mine, Carlin calling, "Mama, come quick!" I didn't rush. When you've raised children, you know the difference between a scream of pain and a scream of guilt. That one was guilty. I took the stairs one by one, holding the banister like I was timing a storm. Avis stood in my bedroom again this morning, crying into her phone, shouting that someone's been in my things. Harlan turned to me, face red, jaw tight. "Did you touch her stuff?" he demanded. I kept my tone flat. "If I ever touched something that wasn't mine, you'd know it? It'd be spotless and put back better than I found it?" Carlin whispered, "Please, let's not do this." Nobody heard her. The room buzzed with blame. Avis waved her purse in the air like a trophy. "My papers! They're gone!" Her voice trembled between fake shock and real planning. I watched her eyes dart toward Carlin. My daughter's fingers twisted around her phone. "What papers?" I asked. Calm. Avis stammered. "Just important ones. About the house." My blood cooled right then. The house. That word didn't belong to her mouth. Harlan stepped forward, pointing a finger. "You were snooping last night. I saw the light in the hallway." He was lying. I could tell by the way his eyes blinked too fast. They'd rehearsed this, built their script while I sat downstairs guarding my name. I didn't defend myself. I just said, "You sure that's the story you want to keep?" and walked out of the room, slow, leaving silence behind me. An hour later, Carlin came down with a manila folder pressed to her chest. She looked soft around the edges, pretending this was compassion. "Mama," she said, "we were just trying to help." She slid the folder across the table. Inside was a refinance application, with my name printed and a shaky imitation of my signature. "We were getting the paperwork started for you. You've been so overwhelmed lately." I stared at that page. tracing the wrong loops of the letters. My middle name was misspelled. The date was last week. They were trying to take the house on paper, not with shouting. "So, y'all helping me now?" I asked. She nodded too fast. "You won't have to worry about bills anymore." I smiled. "That's thoughtful. Shame you didn't ask." I placed the papers back in the folder, slow, and handed them to her. "You keep these safe. They look valuable." The rest of the morning, I moved quiet through the kitchen, fixing myself breakfast. They thought I was sulking. I was documenting. I wrote down everything, who said what, when it was said, what time that scream hit the air. Folks call it journaling these days. I call it evidence. They whispered down the hallway, thinking I was too tired to hear. Let them whisper. They mistook stillness for surrender. When I finished my coffee, I walked to the hallway closet and pulled down the fireproof lockbox. I opened it with the old brass key and slipped the forged refinance papers right beside the real deed, crisp and signed the way God saw it. I locked the box again, set it back, and straightened up, slow. "They wanted my signature," I said under my breath. "They'll get one, but not the one they planned for." By noon, I'd had enough of their whispering. The walls of my own house had started to sound like a courtroom I never asked for, so I called them all, Carlin, Harlan, and Avis, into the kitchen. "Sit," I said, not loud, not angry, just firm. That tone a Southern mama uses when she's about to restore order. Harlan tried to laugh, fake easy. "We're really busy, Eudora." I looked him dead in the eye. "You busy under my roof, you on my time." That wiped the smirk off. They sat. I laid the forged refinance packet on the table like evidence. Didn't say a word at first, let the silence hang, heavy as Sunday heat. Then I looked straight at my daughter. "Repeat to me what you told people about me. Out loud." Carlin blinked fast, face pale. Avis jumped in quick. "She doesn't owe you that. She was only trying to help." I turned my head slow. "Avis, I was not speaking to you." That line hit like a gavel. Right then, a knock broke the air. Martha Pierce, my next-door neighbor for 22 years, stepped in with her Sunday macaroni and that knowing look only church women carry. She froze halfway through the door, sensing tension but too polite to leave. The sight of her changed everything. Harlan's voice turned syrupy. "We've just been taking care of Miss Eudora," he said, loud enough for Martha to hear. "It's been a lot." I smiled thin. "Baby," I said to Martha, "do you see anybody taking care of me? 'Cause I must be blind." She glanced at Avis sitting in Booker's chair, at the papers on the table. "This is still your house, right, Eudora?" she asked. I looked straight at Harlan. "Yes, ma'am. Every brick." The room went still. Avis couldn't stand the silence. "We moved in to help her," she said, pitching her voice like a choir solo. "She couldn't manage by herself." I cut her off, smooth. "Avis, I was at a banking conference in Charlotte, not lost at a bus stop." Carlin's lip trembled. I turned to her. "Say it plain. Did you tell people you took me in?" Tears welled up. "Mama, please, not in front of the neighbor." I leaned in. "If you're ashamed to repeat it, you knew it was wrong." Harlan puffed up. "This whole thing's getting blown out of proportion." I tapped the papers. "Burnt chickens out of proportion. This here's bank fraud." The air snapped. Martha cleared her throat. "Well, that explains the calls." My head turned. "What calls?" "Folks been asking if you're all right," she said. "Word's out you've been slipping and Carlin had to step in. Harlan handling your money." That landed like a hammer. I could see the guilt rise in Carlin's cheeks, the pride drain from Harlan's face. I straightened my back. No, ma'am, I said clearly. My mind is fine. My bills are paid, and my name's on every tax line. Ain't nobody stepping in but Jesus. And that line hit like gospel truth. Martha nodded slow. Then I turned to them all. From this minute forward, you do not speak for me. You don't touch my purse, my mail, or my door. You don't sit at my husband's table. You don't call a meeting in my kitchen unless I'm the one sitting at the head. My voice didn't shake once. Harlan tried to bark back. You can't talk to me like that. I stopped him with a glance. You're not family. You're a guest. And guests can be uninvited. Avis gasped. Carlin covered her face. Martha folded her arms. Witness to the line I'd just drawn. As I walked her to the door, she whispered, Baby, my cousin does housing law. You want me to have him call you? I smiled. Yes, ma'am, I surely do. Then I turned back to the three of them and said, Y'all enjoy lunch. You'll be getting something in writing. By late afternoon, the house felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. I sat at my dining table, laptop open, phone on speaker, talking to Victor Leach, the housing lawyer Martha had promised would call. His voice came steady, calm, the kind of tone that tells you he's seen every version of family greed. I told him everything, the forged refinance papers, the shouting, the threats. He didn't sound shocked. Miss Vance, he said, you still got title and taxes in your name? Yes, sir, I answered. Then it's still your house. We'll put that in ink. He emailed a notice template. Print this and hand it to them. It starts the record. I thanked him. He hesitated, then said, Ma'am, when you hand that over, expect ugly. I smiled a little. Mr. Leach, ugly already moved in. I printed the papers myself. Hearing the hum of the printer felt like taking my power back. I walked into the living room where they sat, talking low. Avis lounged in Booker's old recliner, legs crossed like she'd owned it her whole life. I held 3 copies of the notice, one for each of them. My voice was steady. Effective immediately. You are no longer welcome to remain in my home. You have 36 hours to remove yourselves and your belongings. Avis laughed sharp. You ain't putting me out. I'm family. I stepped closer. No, Avis, you're Carlin's mother. You are not my kin, not on my deed, not in my closet. She stiffened. Harlan muttered. You think you can just throw legal words at us? I placed a paper in front of him. No, baby, I don't think. I know. Carlin's lips trembled. Mama, please. I didn't look at her. You'll have to start calling me Miss Vance again till this is resolved. Silence filled the room like smoke. The line had been drawn. That's when Harlan lost his temper. She doesn't know what she's doing, he shouted. She forgot her meds this morning, had been wandering around talking to herself. It wasn't anger, it was strategy. He was planting a story, setting me up as senile before this ever reached a courtroom. Avis joined in, smooth. She's been repeating herself for weeks, not safe to live alone. They spoke loud, hoping their words would sound official if they said them enough times. Carlin looked at the floor, crying but silent. That silence told me everything. She was letting them do it. My throat burned, but my words came out clean. You will not stand in my home and call me incompetent to justify stealing what I built. You will not weaponize my age against me. I said it slow, clear, like gospel. Avis's eyes narrowed. She switched tactics fast. Carlin, you better let her talk like this, she said coldly. 'Cause when social services hears how she's slipping, they'll start asking if that granddaughter's safe visiting here. My knees weakened. That hit harder than anything else. Little Joy was my heartbeat? Carlin whispered. Mama. Maybe it's better if she doesn't come over for a while, just until things settle. That sentence cracked something in me that will never fully mend. Settle? I said quietly. You think this is about peace? This is about control. For the first time, my daughter couldn't look at me. Then I went still. I stopped arguing, stopped shaking. I laid both hands flat on the table and said, "Thank you. I needed to hear you say that on record." Harlan frowned. What record? I turned my phone face up, red light blinking, voice memo running. North Carolina's a one-party consent state, I said. I only needed me. Avis shot out of Booker's chair like it burned her. Carlin gasped. Harlan cursed. I leaned back in my seat. You just threatened to lie about my mind and use my grandbaby as leverage. You think any judge in Wake County's gonna like that? I stopped the recording and sent it straight to Victor while they watched. You've got 36 hours, I said quietly. You touch my granddaughter to bargain with me, and I promise you, this won't end the way you think. I walked out of that room without another word. By Monday evening, the rain had stopped, but the air still smelled like thunder. Victor Leach drove me to the church hall beside First Baptist. He carried his briefcase. I carried my calm. The place looked harmless, folding chairs, bulletin boards, a faint scent of fried chicken from last night's potluck. But tonight it felt like a courtroom wearing a choir robe. Victor leaned toward me, voice low. Stay composed, Miss Vance. Truth sells itself. I nodded, even though my hands trembled. The door creaked open, and in they came. Avis first, loud and perfumed, Harlan behind her, puffed up like he owned the room, Carlin trailing, eyes red, pretending concern. Martha Pierce sat in the front row, beside Deacon Tully and Mrs. Coleman, the pastor's wife. Folks called this mediation. But everyone knew gossip brought half the crowd. I kept my chin up. You don't hide from lies. You expose them. Victor stood. We're here regarding the residence at 402 Oakwood Drive. His voice was clean, legal. Miss Vance is sole owner. The respondents, her daughter, son-in-law, and extended relation, have refused to vacate after formal notice. Each word hit like a door closing. Avis rolled her eyes. This whole thing's an overreaction. We were protecting her. Harlan jumped in, louder. She's paranoid. We were helping her manage things. Victor didn't flinch. Sir, we'll hear both sides. You may speak after the facts. He looked their way just long enough to make silence fall again. I sat still, watching them perform for the audience. And the pity faces, the fake sighs. I knew better than to interrupt. You don't wrestle with pigs. You just wait until people see the mud for themselves. When it was time. Victor nodded at me. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and connected it to the Bluetooth speaker. I pressed play. The recording filled the hall, Harlan's voice shouting, "She doesn't know what she's doing!" Avis snapping, "Social services won't let her see that baby." And Carlin's soft whisper, "Maybe it's better if Joy doesn't come here." The sound bounced off the wooden walls like Judgment Day. Gasps broke across the room. Martha whispered, "Lord, have mercy." Deacon Tully crossed his arms. Harlan tried to shout over it, "That's taken out of context." Victor lifted one finger. "Sir, you'll refrain from interrupting while your own words are being heard." I sat silent, letting my heart slow to the rhythm of justice. For once, I didn't need to defend myself. The truth was doing that for me. Avis jumped up, voice shrill. "That audio's fake. She edited it." And that's when Mrs. Dean Coleman, of all people, stood. Her pearls glinted under the fluorescent lights. "That's not true," she said calmly. "Carlin came to me 2 days ago, crying. Said her husband and mother-in-law were pressuring her to fix the house papers. She didn't want to do it. The room froze. Carlin's breath hitched. She covered her mouth, then whispered, "Mama, I didn't know they'd go that far." Avis lunged toward her. "You liar!" Deacon Tully grabbed Avis's arm, holding her back. The chaos was deafening for a second. Chairs scraping, whispers flying, then Victor's voice cut through. "We rest our case." It felt final. Outside. The night air was damp and quiet. I sat on the church steps, coffee in hand, Martha beside me. She patted my shoulder. "You did right, baby. Folks needed to hear that." I looked out across the parking lot. Right don't always feel good, Martha. It just keeps you standing. Inside. I could still hear Harlan yelling, Avis ranting, Carlin sobbing. But I stayed still. Victor stepped out, his coat over one arm. "We'll file tomorrow," he said. "You're free." I nodded, though freedom felt heavy. When I reached my car, I saw Carlin by the brick wall, crying into her hands. She looked up at me, eyes pleading. I wanted to hold her, but I'd already learned love without boundaries is just permission for pain. I unlocked my door, met her gaze, and said quietly, "You'll understand when you have a daughter." Then I drove off into the rain. Tuesday morning crept in, soft and gold, the first one without voices under my roof. No slammed doors, no whispered plotting in the kitchen. Just sunlight and the low hum of the refrigerator, the sound of peace, learning to breathe again. I walked barefoot through the hall, my steps echoing. The air felt new, scrubbed clean. Even the scent was different. Less of Avis's heavy perfume, more of pine sol and wood polish. When people leave, I said quietly to myself, they take more than furniture. They take noise. They take the proof you weren't imagining things. I opened doors to half-empty rooms. The guest room was stripped bare. Their suitcases had carved faint tracks across my hardwood floors. In the hallway, a crooked photo of me, Booker, and little Carlin hung tilted. I didn't straighten it. Some memories earned their slant. The front door was unlocked. A draft slid through like a ghost. Their cars were gone, and the driveway was quiet except for a dark oil stain. Harlan's truck leaving one last scar on my concrete. I stood there for a while, the morning air brushing my face. My phone buzzed with a message from Victor. They vacated voluntarily. "Change locks today," I replied. "Thank you." That was all I had energy for. You'd think victory feels like fireworks, but it's quieter than grief. I made coffee and sat on the porch swing where Booker used to rest after mowing. The boards creaked under me, steady and familiar. I looked at the street. Same trees, same sky, but it all looked bigger now that the shadows inside were gone. "Leaving isn't closure," I murmured. "It's an echo." Martha showed up mid-morning, wearing her work apron and that no-nonsense expression I've always loved. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just set a brown paper bag on the counter. "2 biscuits from Hardee's. Still warm?" she said. "You hungry?" I smiled. Starving. That's how real friends love. They feed you before they question you. We sat at the same kitchen table where all the shouting had happened, sharing food in the silence they left behind. "Folks talking about you," she said, "but this time, they're saying the right things." I nodded. Well, better late than never. She studied me a moment. "You'll feel lonely now. That's how peace sounds when it's new." She slid a locksmith's card across the table before leaving. I tucked it into my pocket like a small promise of safety. After she left, I noticed an envelope sitting on the counter. White, plain, with my name in Carlin's handwriting. My stomach tightened. I picked it up slowly. Inside, 2 pages folded neat. The first line read, "Mama, we're sorry you took it this far. Not sorry for what they did. Sorry I fought back." I kept reading. They wrote about how embarrassing the hearing was, how we only wanted to make sure you'd be okay. Manipulation dressed as apology. Then the last line, "We left something in the garage. Maybe you'll find it useful." My pulse jumped. I went to the garage, heart thudding, expecting another trick. But under a dusty tarp sat Booker's old metal file cabinet. One drawer open, a manila envelope inside labeled Deed Insurance Backup. I pulled it out, shaking. Inside was the original deed, the real one. My name clear, untouched. They'd left behind the very proof of what was mine. "Well," I whispered, "the Lord's irony is undefeated." I sat at the dining table again, holding the envelope in both hands. "My mama used to say," I whispered, "the Lord works loud, but justice whispers." The house felt steady now, like it was exhaling after months of holding its breath. I lit a candle for Booker, not for them. The flame flickered steady. Closure isn't a bang, it's paperwork, patience, and peace earned through exhaustion. I dialed the locksmith. "Yep, sir," I said. "Change every lock." The sound of keys jingling later that day was the sweetest hymn I'd ever heard. That night, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "You think you won. Old woman, you'll regret this." I stared at it, calm as moonlight, then hit delete. "You can't haunt what's already awake," I said, turning off the lamp. 1 week later, I woke up in my own bed, under my own roof, with no footsteps down the hall. The sunlight poured through the blinds, painting gold stripes across my comforter. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up holding my breath. I lay there for a while, listening to the silence that finally belonged to me. Peace, I've learned, isn't soft. It's something you have to defend after you've already paid for it. People think peace is a gift. At my age, you buy it, in full. I'd changed the locks, reset the alarm code, and tucked every document, deed copies, receipts, that recording, into a small fireproof box. I glanced at Booker's photo on the dresser. "Baby," I told him. I handled it. And I had. I wasn't scared of them coming back anymore, just irritated they might try. By mid-morning, I sat across from Victor Leach at his downtown office. Sunlight hit the papers between us like truth laid bare. "I want formal trespass notices," I said, "so Avis and Harlan can't set foot on my property again, and a civil demand letter for damages, utilities, property interference, everything." Victor's eyebrows rose. "You're not playing." I shook my head. "Hope is not a plan." He smiled. "Most folks your age just pray it don't happen again." "Prayer without paperwork is just noise," I replied. He printed the drafts right there, the smell of fresh ink filling the air. "You sure about defamation?" he asked. "They did call you unstable in public." "Yes," I said. "We're adding that too." I wasn't waiting for my daughter's blessing this time. That was the difference. This wasn't family drama anymore. It was legal reality. I signed every page with a steady hand. That evening, I went to the Wednesday fellowship at church, the same hall where they once tried to humiliate me. I walked in tall, not defiant, just sure. Conversations dipped when I entered, but it wasn't the old kind of silence. It was recognition. Martha was near the food table, waving me over. "Saved you some sweet potato casserole before them vultures got at it," she said, chuckling. I laughed. "You always know how to keep me alive." A choir lady leaned over, whispering, "We saw that video, Miss Eudora." "You stayed calm. and they still looked foolish. I smiled. That's the trick, baby. Let them tell on themselves. The room softened. For the first time, I wasn't a scandal, I was a warning. A story that taught something. Later, while packing up leftovers, my phone buzzed, a voicemail from Carlin. I stepped into the hallway and listened alone. Mama, you didn't have to embarrass us like that. You're making us look like thieves. This is going to follow Harlan at work. Avis says you stole her piece and you owe her an apology. I laughed out loud. She said I owe her? I saved the voicemail, forwarded it to Victor, and texted, add this tone to the file. That's what peace looks like at 70. It's not silence, it's evidence. I wasn't angry anymore, just done explaining. Then I called Carlin back. My voice stayed calm. You don't give anybody a key to my home again, I said. You don't speak for me in public. If any of you show up at my door, you'll meet law enforcement, not me. She tried to cut in. I spoke over her for the first time in my life. This house is not your safety net. I am not your bailout plan. Those days are done. The line went quiet. I hung up first. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the same spot where they once cornered me. Everything clean, everything mine. I wrote one last letter, not a will, not a threat, a note to myself. You are not confused. You are not helpless. You are the author of this piece. I sealed it in the fireproof box beside the deed. If you're my age, I said softly, and they treat you like a guest in your own life, baby, change the locks. I turned off the kitchen light, the breeze slipping through the open window of the now empty guest room. Curtains swayed gently, whispering the final truth. I didn't just survive. I reclaimed my name. That night, as I placed the sealed envelope for Victor on the counter, a shadow moved past my window, slow, deliberate. I froze, listening. Only the wind, or maybe not. My phone buzzed again. One new voicemail, no caller ID. I pressed play. A man's voice whispered, "You think it's over?"